It's good to hear from people who disagree with us. So, Harrison, if you want to unmute yourself and jump in, that would be great.
Who do you think was conspiring with who to do what?
Yeah.
And I think obviously the name of the episode was, the day before Charlie Kirk was murdered. The insinuation is that this was a assassination planning meeting,
Yeah.
which I don't even see any evidence of that. And then people I'm arguing with online are saying, no, this has nothing to do with the assassination.
Yeah.
So I guess if the space is why this matters, why does Fort Huachuca even matter? Like, what is the claim being made? I still
Yeah.
don't even understand that. Yeah, thanks for having me. I guess my whole thing is why does this meeting even matter? Like, what is the actual claim that's being made here? That's been my confusion the whole point,
Yeah.
the whole time is like, okay, let's say that there's absolute proof, photographic evidence that everything that Snow says is true. Like, who cares? I mean, what does that prove? What is the actual accusation?
Like, it could have easily not mattered. Kind of to speak to your credit, he could have been like, "Yeah, I was at Fort Huachuca with my brother, and my brother's in the military. I was dropping off some food." Uh, okay, like that could have been then suddenly a dead end. That would have been nothing. So it matters because why would Brian Harpole be on Fort Huachuca at all? Right? It matters because he's giving an alibi, which means he doesn't want to be associated. Now, because Mitch had described this as a top secret meeting in an off-site building and had described this as top brass at the Pentagon and said that these sorts of meetings, and I am forgetting the military term, are when you're just about to embark on like a mission. I know I really uneducated, but military guys will sound better saying that. It was compelling. Like, okay, like I said, Brian Harpole was acting funny. He's been acting weird. He's been telling verifiable lies, and he cared enough to present an alibi, meaning he didn't want people to think he was there. Right. So if you have to give someone an alibi, it's because you don't want people to think that you're there. An alibi is not needed if there's nothing to hide. So
Well,
that's why it matters. I think that's why it matters. And this reaction, rather than being forthcoming, is why it suddenly feels like, okay, this is important because no one's acting normal. No one's just like, oh yeah, cool, he was there. Like it also is, as we have now learned, it's an intel base. He was telling the truth about exactly what building it was. I didn't name the building on my show because I wasn't sure if that would be like a national security problem, but it just happened to be that JTF was borrowing that offsite building, and it was supposed to be a top secret meeting for those purposes. Somebody that was involved in blacking out the windows had sent us a tip. Again, it's how people are reacting to the meeting that lets us know that it's important.
okay. I mean,
Now,
I guess.
regarding the hotel, I never said it was important. Like I said, my perspective was there's 1,000 different reasons that she could have been at that base. Her mother has a contract or had a contract, has a contract with the DoD. Erica has been open about her mother's ties to the military in the past. She actually did an interview and said that she moved to Arizona because her mother had a contract with the military. So again, weird thing is when Andrew's like, Erica wasn't in some fort, as if he's never heard of Fort Huachuca. His brother is in the military. His brother is a Captain Curtis Colvett. His first cousin is Captain Robert Colvett. So that kind of a language is why I've named this, why it suddenly really matters, right? It was sort of one episode. I didn't exactly dedicate a whole series to it. The reaction has been so almost like violently obsessed that the public is now going, oh, okay, well, it feels like there's something here. I think that's just sort of our natural instinct.
Okay. I mean, I think if you're saying that somebody is somewhere and they weren't there, then providing the alibi is not in and of itself suspicious. If the alibi is not confirmed, I guess you can be suspicious of that. But again, I still there's still not an answer. Like, okay, let's just say you're right. Let's just say that absolutely they were there.
Yeah.
What does that prove? What is the accusation? Because what it sounds like, and I mean, what the insinuation obviously is that this was a planning meeting for the assassination, and the people there had pre-knowledge of the assassination and were therefore in on it. So I think that if you are making that accusation, which in effect you are, right, you're in effect saying, okay, Erica Kirk and the head of TPUSA security were at this pre-assassination
I didn't
planning
say Erica
meeting.
was there, so you guys have to stop repeating that. It's Erica was never at that meeting, and that's another thing. I've never said Erica was at the meeting. Mitch has never said Erica was at that meeting. There was never an indication she was at that meeting. She wasn't even. He did not see her on September 9th. It was Brian Harpole who was at that meeting. To my knowledge, Brian Harpole, I don't know why he would be at an intel base at a meeting with top brass. And what I can tell you is if he was there, Turning Point doesn't know he was there. According to Erica and Justin Strife, who I sat down for 4.5 hours. So if Turning Point has him on their payroll and they've outright purchased a security firm and they don't know what he's doing on an intel base, yeah, it matters. And we don't need to know the conclusion to follow the clues here that something's wrong. So that there's this fashionable thing where people are always like, well, what's the final thing you're saying? Well, we don't know the final thing that we're saying because that's not how an investigation works.
Okay, so again, you are saying that basically these people were there to conspire to kill Charlie Kirk, right? I mean,
You can keep saying what you're saying, or you can listen to what I'm saying. But if you want to just say what you're saying, just say it and don't put it behind you're saying. Just say, hey, I'm Harrison and I'm saying, right? That's easier, I think. So what did you
okay.
say?
Hi, I'm Harrison. What I'm saying is that in 2 months, nobody is going to remember the name Mitch Snow or Fort Huachuca, and this is not going to go anywhere, and that this is a nothing burger. I just think it's an absolute nothing burger that's not going to lead anywhere. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You can prove me wrong, but again, my whole thing has always been that this devolves into this question of like, was he there? Was he not there? And the whole time I'm just going, what does it matter? If the conclusion is that he's a complete liar, it's the exact same outcome as proving that these people were actually there, because so far you haven't connected it to the assassination in any way whatsoever, except that maybe this guy thinks that he saw people that are around Charlie Kirk. And my whole point is, obviously the insinuation is, I mean, again, when you're saying Erica Kirk was there, but not actually there on the day, but in the area, but not because of the assassination meeting, but it's like, okay, clearly the insinuation is that these people had something to do with the assassination, and you can make that claim or not, or pretend that you are, or pretend that you're not, but you obviously are. But like, that's all. I don't really care about any of that.
Thanks,
But
Harrison.
you have to.
Thank you. Let's skip somebody. I think,
Okay.
just for you to say something clearly and obviously and clearly doesn't make it clear or obvious.
Okay.
I'm following this investigation. Charlie was assassinated. I'm going to take every step and I'm going to say what I know at the exact time that I know it. So I cannot say that it was definitively an assassination meeting. I can say that I have a feeling about this meeting that if it is in fact Brian Harpole there and he's lying about that, then that's not good. It's not a good thing because there's no reason to lie unless you have something to hide. But thank you so much.
Well,
We
you
have to
can.
follow the thing that's the lie. We have to follow. Okay, this guy said he was here, he wasn't. What does that mean? I don't know what it means yet. I don't know what it means yet. What I'm saying is the reaction to this is not normal. Brian Harpole shouldn't be on an intel base if Turning Point doesn't know about it. And he's presented an alibi that doesn't actually cover where he was, but he felt it necessary to give an alibi. So I don't know, interesting. And I think we have a right to think. So if that's cool, I'm just gonna let somebody else jump in right here. I think, is that okay, Harrison, or do you want to just have a final thought there?
Sure. Okay. So Erica Kirk was not there. You don't believe that Erica Kirk was there at all.
She wasn't there on the 9th. She was not seen on the 9th. It's not about whether I believe she was there. She wasn't seen on the 9th. That was never said. He never said it. I never said it.
Okay, but she was seen on the 8th.
Yes, and not at the Intel meeting, not in the Intel, headquarters or whatever building they were using. She was not seen with the top brass, nothing like that.
Okay, so the pre-assassination planning meeting happened on the morning of the 9th. She was seen in the area on the afternoon of the 8th, but those were unrelated. She just happened to be there.
They are related because of the person she was with, who he believes looks like Cabot Phillips. He did see that person at the meeting on the 9th.
Thank you so much for watching that video, because that was a moment where Candace Owens was just put on the spot by a critic, as people are calling him. But is he really a critic, or does he want facts and not just stories? And that's the real question here, because what you just watched wasn't an attack or an ambush. It was someone asking for clarity, evidence, and logic in a story that has been presented with a lot of confidence but very little verification. Before getting deep in that story, it's important to briefly explain what this Fort Huachuca story actually is and why it's become such a big talking point. Fort Huachuca is a real U.S. Army military intelligence base in Arizona, and Candace Owens has repeatedly referenced it while discussing what she frames as suspicious activity surrounding a major political tragedy. Over time, she has suggested that certain people connected to conservative political circles were somehow present there or connected to events tied to that base in a way that she claims raises serious questions. One of the key figures she references in pushing this narrative is a man named Mitch, who she presents as someone bringing forward information or observations meant to cast doubt on official timelines. According to Candace's framing, Mitch's account is treated as meaningful enough to raise alarms, even though it has not been independently verified or supported with documentation that confirms what is being implied. What complicates this story even further is that several of the people mentioned in Candace's narrative has publicly responded and directly denied being at Fort Huachuca on the dates being suggested. Some of them have stated they were in entirely different locations at the time and have backed those statements with timelines, travel details, and public records. In other words, the people being implied as connected to this story have said clearly and openly that they were not there. Despite these denials, the narrative continues to be pushed, not by presenting new evidence, but by repeatedly framing the situation as suspicious or strange. And that's where the real issue begins, because suspicion is being treated as if it is proof rather than as something that still needs to be investigated and confirmed. Now, when you watch the moment where Candace Owens is challenged by someone asking straightforward questions, you start to see the cracks. When she's asked what these claims actually demonstrate, or how one fact directly leads to another, the response isn't clarity. Instead, it's deflection. She often says, "That's not what I'm saying," even though the implications she has spent time building remain exactly the same. This is a rhetorical strategy where you strongly suggest a conclusion, emotionally guide the audience towards it, and then pull back just enough to avoid taking responsibility for the conclusion itself. The story is allowed to spread, but accountability is avoided. And that is what Candace Owens simply seemed like she's doing. Another thing that becomes obvious is how repetition replaces explanation. Instead of clearly laying out evidence, the same phrases are repeated over and over again. That something is suspicious, that something feels off, that people should be asking questions. But repeating a feeling does not turn it into a fact. Familiarity can make an idea feel true even when it hasn't been proven. Then there is the issue of burden of proof. In that video, you can see how quickly responsibility is shifted. Rather than demonstrating her claims, Candace challenges the guy to prove that nothing unusual happened. But that's not how logic works. If you suggest hidden coordination or wrongdoing, it's your responsibility to support that claim with evidence. Asking question is not an accusation. It's a necessary part of any honest inquiry. Tone also plays a major role, here. Candace speaks with confidence and certainty, which can make anyone questioning her sound unreasonable or hostile. But confidence does not equal accuracy. A calm tone does not replace missing evidence. And when confidence is used to shut down legitimate questions, that should concern anyone who values truth over loyalty. This matters because of the size of her platform. When someone with a large audience repeatedly frames speculations as validation, it teaches people to accept implication instead of proof and instinct instead of investigation. Skepticism towards institutions can be healthy, but skepticism without standards quickly turn into misinformation. Calling someone a critic is calling someone a critic in a dismissive way misses the point entirely. Wanting facts is not hostility. Wanting evidence is not an attack, and asking someone to explain what their claims actually prove is not censorship, it's accountability. If a story cannot survive basic scrutiny, then the issue isn't the person asking the question. The issue is the story itself. This doesn't mean institutions are always honest or that official narratives should never be questioned, but there is a difference between questioning power and abandoning standards. When suspicion replaces evidence, truth becomes optional. So when you watch moments like those, don't just listen to how confidently something is said. Pay attention to what is actually being shown as evidence. Ask yourself what facts are being presented, what conclusions are being drawn, and whether one truly leads to the other, because in this case, what stands out most is not the strength of the argument, but how quickly it weakens when someone calmly asks a simple question: what does this actually prove? That's not hate, that's not attack, that's how truth is supposed to, to be. That's how someone is supposed to ask for the truth, by simply asking questions. So guys, I don't know what you all think about that moment, of Candace just being put on the spot, but just go ahead in the comment section and tell me. Because for me, I feel like, even with how she ended their conversation, it's like, the guy triggered her, like, because the guy had not even finished asking Candace his questions, but Candace was already like, thank you so much. Like, she was just too fast on dismissing the guy. And honestly speaking, in as much as Candace might say that, that's how she does her investigation, I feel like there must be a conclusion to every story. Because, guys, when will this story end? Because from how she has been narrating the Fort Huachuca story, it seems like she wants to justify something. It seems like she's been wanting to, use the story to prove a certain point. Then she should just tell us what point she's trying to prove, instead of, just taking too much time proving this story without a conclusion. Because some people have been saying that she's also trying to cash out as much as she can with this story. Anyway, guys, tell me in the comments, what do you all think about, this whole Fort Huachuca story? Let's meet in the next one. I love you all, and may God bless you.